I'd now like to turn to our sister Hindou. If you can share some background and information about the indigenous-driven efforts in response to climate change.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, and thank you, the Arctic, to hosting us here. So, as we hear from the two regions, indigenous peoples are gathering through the 7 regions under the International Indigenous People Forum on Climate Change, and those regions are Africa, Asia, Latin American, Caribbean, Arctic, North America, and then Pacific, and we have Eastern Europe and Russia. So we divide this region according to our traditional way of life. And then through this one, we have the indigenous peoples caucus under the Convention of the Climate Change. So through this one, we always organize to have our co-chair, our representative from the regions, and then to come with the policy positions. So that helped us to achieve ending up in the Paris Agreement with a reference on indigenous people's rights, indigenous people's participation, and the big one, indigenous people's traditional knowledge as solution for the climate adaptation and mitigation. So through this one, we use, how we can use the knowledge to implement the Paris agreements. So we cannot use the knowledge without respecting, firstly, the rights of the peoples, as we hear from my 2 colleagues in our daily work linking to the land, to the food. We need to use the knowledge and that linking directly with the rights. So we gather on it and pushing for whatever that will protect those knowledges to protect our environment. So it's not indigenous peoples who are sitting at the table and negotiating with the government. Of course, at the UN, that is not happening. But the countries who are sitting around, most of them know what's the importance role that indigenous peoples are playing. But of course, some of them also do not know or do not accept to recognize this one. So those are the big challenges we are facing at the international fora. But we have the positive aspect because all of us facing the same change, and then indigenous peoples get the solutions. So that's allowed all the rest of the countries to accept these references and then the engagement of indigenous peoples through these international negotiations. But still, we have to come together with many different constituencies because as indigenous people, we have one of the major group under the UN climate negotiation. But the rest of the major group and the rest of the state parties and private sectors, and we have also the UN agencies, so need all to come together and talk in the language that indigenous peoples can help at this international fora to get the right policy outcome into the decisions in order to implement better all what we have to do as solutions.
Yeah.